this is one session that I'm super excited about, because I strongly believe future of work is about trust and building trust-based communities. So when we shift to remote, a lot can change. And obviously, I believe in managing with metrics, being an ex-consultant and investment banker myself. But trust is a key foundation for innovation in human communities. And that's one of the reasons we have Dorota with us. She spent 15 years in human capital management. She doesn't prefer to say human resources in general. And she's a certified organizational design and development professional, and also a certified diversity, equality, and inclusion professional. But first and foremost, she was the head of people at NetGrew. NetGrew, for those that know it, it's a rapidly scaling, fully remote company since 2008, which is like super early. And now they are like 600 plus people. And they have a lot of lessons to share, a lot of scars, bruises along the way. So welcome, Dorota, and thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alp, for the short introduction. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm really happy to be sharing some of the NetGrew lessons, but also some of the lessons from other remote-first, remote-friendly, remote-only organizations. And as you say, Alp, I very much believe that healthy organizations, the more so healthy remote organizations, are built around pervasive and very cohesive culture. Yeah, mm-hmm. Everyone needs to speak the same language. Everyone needs to trust each other and depend on each other. That's why, actually, as you can see, the subtitle of my today's module is "Culture: Its Strategy for Breakfast." I will refer to it on numerous occasions. And if you ask yourself what's in it for me in my presentation, I hope it's anything but soft and fuzzy. So culture is not intangible. It is very tangible as a matter of fact. And I'll try to give you some examples and some easily replicable practices. And as you mentioned, it's all based on sometimes lessons learned the hard way, not just, the soft way. So you've already introduced me. So this is just my slide once again, for those of you who joined a bit later. And everything I'm going to talk to you about today is actually set in a very specific context. I don't know if you know this street art, a piece of street art by Banksy just appeared a week ago in London, and I think it's so true for what the context today is all about. So the thing is, it will be out of stock for quite some time to come. So we need to get used to the new circumstances and actually the new ways of collaboration, communication, and mm-hmm. Just building relations. So my agenda for today is, as you can see, for part one, I will really focus on the 5 key elements. We could be talking forever about it, but we have limited time. So I've picked 5 elements. I'll try to show you the challenges and the strategies and how to cope with those challenges. And then, as you can see, and then we will have a Q&A session. I would want to actually separate my module into 2 parts, so that you have first the kind of a culture bit, and then, as you can see in the less vivid color, this is part 2. You will see that throughout the entire presentation on my slides today to guide you better. So now I'm talking about part 1, and now I'm talking about part 2. So you can see the part that I'm talking about is in intense color. So part 2 today is all about, again, 5. I picked 5. There are many more, and I'm sure some of my predecessors referred to them already. I picked 5, maybe less obvious communication and collaboration challenges. And again, some guidelines, some rituals, how to actually work around them. Mm-hmm. Okay, I hope that's clear. Do you think I can get started?
Yes.
All right.
Sounds very exciting. Yeah.
All right. So let's get started. As I promised, part one. So 5 ingredients, as I may call them, key ingredients of those pervasive, cohesive, trust-based culture of belonging, as I put it. And then I will give you, or maybe put emphasis on how and why it's so important these days to restate the social contract built around this common purpose and shared vulnerability and shared values. I'll try to refer to that because I think it's really important in today's context. The coronavirus is going to last for some time, and I think we cannot wait. We need to actually agree and commit to certain values and certain norms as of today to be efficient in our everyday collaboration. All right, as I mentioned before, culture is strategy for breakfast. It's true for any organization, as a matter of fact, but the more so for the remote organizations, where basically everyday collaboration is devoid of non-verbal language. You cannot see each other. You cannot actually communicate as effectively as when you see each other, when you interact live. So you need to speak the same language, as I said before. And if you think of how organizations are designed, and I don't want to go into details here today, just showing you something. They are only efficient if the formal part, the one you are preferred to, KPIs, monetary rewards, specific roles, role descriptions, decision processes, if they are in line, if they are kind of compatible with the informal bit. Yeah, and the informal bit you have on the right, and this is all about norms, values, standards. It's about shared vision and objectives, that it's all really clear and everyone understands where we are going, where we are heading. It's about shared identities, shared language and beliefs, and so forth. Yeah. So no time to dig deeper. I know that this session is being recorded, so you can pause and actually read on. So I'm just trying to stress how important that is. Prior to NetGuru, I worked on many mergers and acquisitions where we actually did cultural due diligence. And we know how many mergers and acquisitions fail because there is no cultural due diligence part. Yes, a really a very, not just financially, not legal, but it's also cultural due diligence and cultural integration that needs to be to actually be taken into account. So it's really key. All right. So the promised 5 elements, I believe, are crucial, and I will walk you through 5 of them one by one in a second. For me, these are: 1, it's respect above all. Yeah. Then it's transparency, and it's just transparency about everything, but first and foremost about values. Yes, and about everyday feedback. We call it radical candor. I will try to explain you what is meant. This is a well-known concept I will refer you to. Mm-hmm. And then number 3, we have trust, psychological safety, and the so-called shared vulnerability. I will tell you a little bit more about it and refer you to some links. Then we have ownership and accountability. Again, I'll tell you more about how that can be actually put into place on an everyday basis. And then empowerment, which is different from enablement, and we need both of these. Yeah. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. That's my question. That's the question to the translator. If that's okay, you just let me know.
No, you can rely on our translator.
All right, good. Because I'm told sometimes that I'm speaking very fast and I should slow down. So just let me know if that happens during the presentation. All right, trust and respect. I believe it's we don't need to explore.
No, yes, we are very good. You can.
All right.
So just do it at your pace.
All right, good. So we don't need to elaborate on respect and what respect is all about. What I'm referring you to, and I sent this on the list of my useful links, you all have them, and I know it will be distributed to all participants, is actually a series of blog posts from Rob Kaiser, who actually tells more about how crucial this respect is and how important it is that leaders model it on an everyday basis, especially in those difficult times. As you can see here, and I think it rings so true today, people will forget what you said and what you did, because there will be a lot of failures, a lot of mistakes made on this journey to more remote, efficient organizations. But they will always remember how you made them feel. So it's all about respect. It's all about empathy. It's about making sure people do feel that you care. Yeah, I don't think we need to elaborate on that. Yeah, but it will be later on interwoven in my presentation. All right, then transparency. I think what is really important to actually start this journey is to, if you don't have them defined yet, so either define or redefine, and then over-communicate company priorities, goals, and really give regular status on company business situation. Yeah, in remote first and remote companies, it's like it's obvious that you do that basically, so that people feel they know what is going on. They feel on the same page. They really feel they belong. Yeah, and they also contribute. Yeah, but it's even more difficult. It's even more important these days. Yeah, so make sure you maybe even redefine your priorities. Yeah, as you know, the situation is dynamic and evolving. So do it regularly. Then we have number 2, and I will show you some examples from NetGuru, but basically any remote organization has it in the kind of remote smart guidebooks. Yeah, and I again included a lot of links to those playbooks, and you will have them. You will receive them after my presentation. So redefine as a team. Make sure it's not a top-down exercise. As a team, redefine or define your core values and norms. Yeah, binding or no. And then make sure everyone commits to them. And it's really important that it's actually also the leadership who does that and models that. And I'll show you some example how to go about it. Later on, however, what is also important is make sure you have something like leaders expose maybe now. Yeah, and clearly state all the need to commit to these values that you've just redefined together. Yeah, make sure it's binding on all. Again, it's this new social contract that we need to basically commit to, that we need to hold each other accountable for, and really observe on everyday basis. We are together in this ambiguity. We need to share our vulnerability. We will be making mistakes. We need to empathize with each other and find basically understanding for those mistakes. Yeah, and simply support each other on everyday basis. So some examples from the NetGuru, the company Alp you mentioned, the remote first company, 650% people on board, 650% people on board. You have a couple of values here. I'll pick one, and maybe based on this one, I'll tell you how we went about it. After some time, we needed to review our values, and this is what we did last year, and we did it fully remotely. It was like a word cafe format, webinar based. And you can basically find a lot of ideas how to organize it online, but it's really important that people do actually own the initiative, that you make sure that it's clearly translated into concrete behaviors. Yeah, and then if possible, and take a look here, that you have testimonials from people, what that means for them in their specific setting. So you have them defined. You actually combine these with like clear norms and clear behaviors, everyday behaviors, and then, like people referrals, so to speak, so that it's really clear and understood by everyone. I think it's really, really important these days to go back to the fundamentals. Yeah.
So this is like a growth manager case that you are sharing, or
this is actually from our culture book, NetGuru culture book, available online also, and I included it in my links. You will be able also to actually look at it. There are a lot of those testimonials and values included in the NetGuru culture book.
Awesome. So it's actually so transparent. You made it a book and shared online.
Yes.
Perfect.
Actually, many remote companies, and I again included it in my links. Have their culture books. Yeah, we've also made ours, and we made it available to online to everybody. All right. So as I said, make sure your people own and identify with the organization values and norms. Let them co-define these values. Make sure everyone models those values by walking the talk. Really, it should be interwoven into different kind of more formal processes. Like on the entire employee journey. If you think of how people are even evaluated on their performance, it's really then when you refer to values. Yes.
So when you made it, like how many people were NetGrew? 100,
when we made the values,
not made, or even when you iterated it, like the
we iterated it last year when we were around 600 people.
So how do you co-define 600 people?
Okay, very good question. We basically what we did is we invited everyone who wanted, yes, but we made sure that it's representatives from different teams, and we had like a representation from different organization levels and different teams, and then we had different groups because we had 7 values, so we had 7 groups working on it. Then moving on to also actually chip in something to the other groups. Basically, this is how we went about it. So there were around 20-something people who, other people from the company trusted that they would represent.
Okay, and how long did this process take in total?
It was basically it was like seven sessions, because we had 7 values, that we wanted to work on.
Okay, so in one session you enter and you finish it.
No, we had also one more take. So we had 2 takes at every value.
Okay.
We had 2 takes at every value. Yeah, but you can, the different formats you can adopt, and that works for us really well. Yeah, we received good feedback, and we later on, the next steps was actually translating those values for the specifics of every given department, be it technology department or I don't know, different support departments, recruitment, yes, I don't know, marketing. They understand it in the different ways, so they also later on translated it for their own for their own sake.
Okay.
But also we make sure, as I said, that people really are made accountable for it. Yeah, that this is what you refer to when you have, I don't know, one-on-one meetings, yes, or when you have performance appraisal. So it's something that really we live by it. Yeah, and make sure people do it. Yeah. Also, make people responsible, as I write in the last point, for defending them. So if somebody is overstepping the mark, this is really in healthy organizations where peers can actually, or even not peers, sometimes you can say that to your leader, okay, listen, I think it's not in line with this or that value. Yeah. And I think this is how you make sure that people really feel it makes sense. And it's not just paper, a kind of exercise. Yeah. And they feel safe because they know that it's binding on all. Yeah, and that creates this feeling of really belonging, contributing to something that you commonly share. Yeah, I could talk about it forever. I even had a 1-day session just talking about how to go about creating company values. But
honestly, I can also ask about it forever, because like building this, in a multicultural and fully remote company, like where you are not physically present, is very different.
Of course.
It's a different case. So maybe we'll get into this more in the Q&A part.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Radical Candor. Again, I'll show you a nice model in a second. This is also very, very much in line with the values, because if you are to be a transparent organization, that means also radical candor. Radical does not mean that it's brutal. It's maybe, this may be misleading the concept itself. I'll show you what it's all about in a second. But anyway, what is important is that people are encouraged not just to give and take feedback, all kinds of ways. It needs to be two-way, continuous, on the spot, but it's also that they are encouraged to solicit feedback, so to ask for feedback. Yeah. So we've been working on this for a month on this initiative. One piece of advice of feedback would you give me so that I can improve? Yeah. And if also leaders act this way, they show that they are vulnerable, that they also may not be perfect. This then starts working because they need to model it. Yeah. And maybe let me show you the model itself. this is the link down there. I've also sent to you up. Yeah. So people can go and read.
Maybe when you give it, you can also give a couple of cases from NetGrew or your own experience.
Yes, actually, also looking even at this model, I think I can refer to some examples. If you look at the ideal, piece of radical candor, it means that you care personally. That's why you give feedback. But this feedback needs to be really non-judgmental. This is feedback, quality feedback. It's feedback that is basically given to somebody so that someone can develop further. Yeah, it's given not about the person but about the activity. It's not given. It's kind of unbiased and so forth. So we can talk a lot about good quality feedback. Anyway, it's really given because you trust that it will help somebody improve. Now, what happens in some cultures, and it's, for example, very true for Polish culture, is that we'd rather you look at maybe I'll use my pointer here. We'd rather not give feedback at all because we care so much personally about somebody. We are afraid to hurt someone. Yeah. So we say, and this is this ruinous empathy. We say,
okay. I won't say anything. It's really good to link it with empathy. I mean, you have a lot of empathy, but you don't act on it. So it actually ruins the good intention, right?
Yes. It ruins the good. It will not let anybody develop. And anyway, it will backfire because it will also sometimes impair your team effort one way or another. Yeah. So basically, it's this silence to avoid hurting the person's feelings. Yeah, which will not help the person grow, help the team grow, or help the company grow as such. Then what we have down there, this is all about not saying because you don't care. So it's even most likely, I would say it's even worse. Yeah, either you don't say anything. So it's called manipulative insincerity. You don't say maybe because knowledge is power, so you prefer to keep it for yourself. Yes, and again, it will backfire anyway, sooner or later. Or basically because you don't care. Yeah, you don't care about somebody's development. Yeah. All right, and then another one is this called really, strongly here, obnoxious aggression. But this is basically you say things, but you say it in a way that somebody really feels hurt. I mean, it's not very productive. Yeah. So it's basically feedback given in a disrespectful way. Sometimes it's judgmental, sometimes it's biased, and so forth. Yeah. So it's no quality feedback. It will not help anybody grow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I really recommend you to go and read more about it. But I think this really ongoing two-way exchange every day, on the spot feedback on the spot is really important too. You don't let things escalate, especially in the remote context where basically 90% of communication happens online. Sometimes things are misunderstood easily, so you really should double check or give feedback or just jump on a call and clarify things. Yeah, don't let things escalate. Yeah? Okay. All right. So this is all about transparency and radical candor. Mm-hmm. And of course, again, make sure once you receive feedback, you reflect on it. Yeah. And same applies to company feedback. At NetGuru, we collected regularly company feedback and we showed to people, we published how we are going to respond to it, what we are going to do about it, and so forth. So it also needs to be transparent. Don't demand of people, demand of yourself as a leadership team and as a company too. Yeah, so model it. Yeah, so this way it can be really respected. Okay, and again, make sure your leaders act as role models of this blame-free culture. They need to be open to feedback themselves, but they also need to promote this notion of, failing early, failing often, so to speak. Yeah, so don't let things escalate. Everybody can fail, especially, in dynamic cultures, especially in remote cultures, when we, this collaboration is, by its very nature, more difficult, more challenging. But as long as you actually admit it openly, you draw conclusions, you share those conclusions and move along, everything is okay. And leaders really need to model that. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3, and I really, really recommend this book to you, just showing this quickly.
Yeah, I love this book.
Yeah, I love this book too. A lot of good examples from really great organizations. Great, you like it too, Alp. Mm-hmm. And it's both business, sport, entertainment.
Listening, I strongly recommend. I think we already talked about this, but yeah.
Great. So I'm showing it too. It's a lot of inspirations, brilliant practical tips too, and inspirations. And again, if you think of if I were to summarize the book and talk about exactly trust psychological safety, shared vulnerability. This is what is all in there, yeah. And it's all about successful remote organizations too, yeah. It's trusting in people and their good intentions, right? Like giving everybody this benefit of the doubt, as we say, yeah. Even if something seems wrong, it's not because people, have bad intentions. Yeah, we all make mistakes, yeah. Then we need to show and be very clear, give clear signals of empathy and connection. This goes for leaders in particular, yeah? Checking in with people if everything is okay, especially now if everything is okay also in their family life, basically. Yeah, this will be really crucial, how they are getting along with this new situation and caring for each other.
Clear signals, like, what do you mean exactly?
It's sometimes body language, yeah? Or it's sometimes like a check-in, like, oh, by the way, how have you been? Like, it's a couple of extra words other than like business only words, yeah? But ideally, and I will come to that later, is really making sure that you do interact live in a sense with the webcam.
I suppose to do that, you have to be really, you have to actually care so that you do it, not robotically, right?
Yes, sure. But then I think, so that takes some training too, because some people have, they are not even aware of the fact that they don't use this kind of communication at all, and it does not come naturally to them. Yeah, they have those blind spots. Yeah, they are not aware even of that. It's not that they don't want it, but this is a blind spot area. Yeah, sometimes they are not even aware of that. So only then you generate, as we call it, bonds of belonging and identity, and people really wanting to do something together and go, like the extra mile, because they know, that they feel safe, that they belong to this group. Yeah, this is this strong identity, and it's easier to embrace discomfort, any kind of a new situation, especially these days. So then this already mentioned shared vulnerability. We need to be open about things, that we are insecure, that we don't know everything, that we are not omnipotent, we are not omniscient. Yeah. And again, it starts with the leaders. Yeah. So if we show our doubts, people will also very early let us know, for example, that they are not sure about certain things, that maybe certain things, they made mistakes. And it's much easier to then take care of those mistakes and make sure you can move on and learn from the mistake. Yeah, so really, really important. It's all about the mindset and attitude, what I'm talking about right now. Yeah, really, than specific tools. It's difficult, to be very, very practical here today, but I think you can dig in the book I mentioned before for very specific, practices and rituals. And then clear purpose, as I said before, really, and make sure, the goals are clear, values are clear, that you also regularly update it, restate it, strengthen it.
Regularly means how often? Like?
It depends how dynamic the situation is, and actually up also. Minimum quarterly. So you need to know what the long-term goals are, what the short-term goals are. And I believe now, it's really, you need to know how dynamically the company situation is changing. When we make sure people are on the same page. Yeah. All right. So some of the links down there recommended. Yeah. And anyway, just to close this trust and vulnerability part, I'm showing you one more model that you can dig deeper and read more about. This is by Josh Bersin. Many of you, I'm sure, know it. This is this irresistible organization model. And if you think about it, so much there, look, it's about trust, you see. It's about safety, right? It's about psychological safety, again, if you think about it. It's about clear goal setting, everything we've talked about. Yeah, it's about leaders, that we really do care about leaders and how they are developed and so forth. So again, worth digging deeper, because again, we need to move on. But I think you will find a lot of inspiration in that model too, and everything that Josh Bersin writes about. Okay, number 4 in terms of culture, it's ownership and accountability. Because you may think remote work is all about fun, freedom, everyone does what they want. In a sense, yes, there is a lot of autonomy there, and a lot of autonomy is needed, but it does not mean that we don't have accountability. Yeah, we need to combine it wisely. So really, people need to be trusted to deliver the clearly and mutually agreed goals in their own time, that's for sure. But you as leaders, you as a team, you need to check in regularly, to be there, to help if need be. No micromanagement, but be there on a standby kind of thing. And of course, rituals were regular meetings, team meetings, one-on-one meetings. They are really important. And at Guru, what we did is we had weekly all 3 meetings, which is one-on-one meetings, and weekly team meetings. And they had different functions. And then we also had quarterly face-to-face sessions. These were development sessions and goal-setting sessions. Like quarterly goals that were actually combined with company goals, because we had the OKR methodology. So it was like goals cascaded down the organization. Everyone knew how they are contributing to the team and company goal. So that clarity is really important.
You said 3 meetings. So you said one-on-ones, team, and the third one is?
And the third one was face-to-face. It was a quarterly meeting. The leader, yes. Okay. And that's the third one. That's the minimum, I believe. There are many more, of course, because there's a lot of knowledge exchange meetings, communities of practice meetings. But if I think of those like must-haves, for sure, this is it. Where you have team bonding somehow together. Then you have cross team projects too, of course, and then those groups meet too regularly. But try to do as much as possible asynchronously, and then live meetings are important too. I mean, webcam. All right. Then one more next thing, and it's really important, is ensure one shared single source of truth. This is how we care about accountability. It's not about control, like by the leader. But if you have specific tools where you can track status of things, this ensures accountability. If people really update status regularly. Here you can see a couple of tools that we used on everyday basis. I think like Jira, Conflu, Salesforce as those one single sources of truth. For Salesforce it was like finance and CRM. Jira was a project thing. Confluence was an announcement and knowledge exchange and knowledge repository and tool. And G Suite, in our case, it's something that we could not imagine living without, and of course Slack. I know some of my predecessors talk about tools a lot. I'm not going to dwell on it for too long, but you have a list also, and I included it in my links with 75 other recommended tools that
everybody will need to figure out which one works best. Confluence has been coming up pretty often. Do you like that tool?
Which one? Confluence, yes. I mean, we cannot. This is our one and only. This is by Atlassian too. So both Jira and Confluence, these are Atlassian tools, and it's all about internal communication, internal comms, and knowledge repositories.
Okay.
So it's a really good place to actually store that and publish announcements. All right, so this is all about accountability. Great tools, of course, but also guidelines. Everybody needs to really live up to this promise of regularly updating those single sources of truth. This needs to be really updated daily, on a daily basis. All right, and now again, a kind of a mindset part. Make everyone own their scope and feel accountable for both successes and failures. And then failures are just treated as opportunities to learn. This is only when people really are open about failures and mistakes. And then again, I could, talk about it forever. But this is really the blame-free culture that is crucial here. This is how people own their scope, and they are not afraid of experimenting and taking brave decisions and questioning the status quo. And this is what all innovative, especially remote organizations need. Because certain things are visible to some people only, and they need to really feel responsible and need to own the entire outcome, company outcome, not just their own results and goals. Okay, so number 4, empowering and enablement. Make sure you really, as leaders, and this is really a kind of a request to leaders. Yeah, make sure that leaders ask, people for their input first. Yeah, This is really important. Meritocracy rules in all healthy organizations, innovation-based, knowledge-based, but more so in the remote organizations. It's really a rule of thumb. Yeah, and then empower them to make their own decisions. Yeah, allow them to make mistakes, as I said before, if relatively low cost, of course. Yeah, and then learn from those mistakes. Yeah, as long as they do not repeat those mistakes, it's okay. Yeah, and then this is a very nice phrase, an important phrase, and again, I have a link for you there later on to read more about it. Empowerment and delegation do not mean abdication. So if you as a leader, you delegate, you empower, it does not mean that you're always over there. You support and enable with the right resources, or sometimes, resources being people or financial resources or tools. Yeah, and make sure those expectations are clear when you empower and delegate. We call those unclear expectation model, and that's what I wrote. Avoid expectation model. People need to understand really well what it means that you empower them, and also you as a leader, you need to make sure that when you empower them, they also feel enabled to do things. They have the tools and the autonomy they need. Okay, and then the last one, and I think it's really important sometimes so that you have successors and also people feel they can do without you as a leader, is make the leader disappear at times and challenge people to leave their comfort zones and take charge. Yeah, it's really important too in this process of empowerment and enablement.
So when you empower people to make their own decisions, and they are reluctant, or they need confirmation, so what do you recommend, or do you have such cases?
I think this is really like then kind of coaching habit. So what just asking, what do you need to make the decision on your own? Yeah. Basically, and then providing support needed, because sometimes it's really like it's the not trusting in one's own abilities sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes you need to say explicitly that you as a leader will simply, you want them to grow and you want them to take risks. Yeah, sometimes they are not 100% sure that that's the way to go, but they also need to make mistakes, and it's okay. So that depends on the situation. All right, my dear. So just closing the culture part, kind of. Although, as I say, I think we could talk about it forever. This is the quote from Ed Catmull, I'd say the legendary CEO of, for example, the Pixar and the Disney studios, very well known for the cultures he built. And he says it takes time, of course, to build a strong culture, but you have to go through some failures, some screw ups, and then once you survive them, you really trust one another. And this is it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, Q&A part. Q&A, and then we can move to some more practical bits.
Okay. So before we get into practical parts, are there any questions anybody would like to share or shoot for Dorota? So I have one.
Yeah.
So as you were scaling with NetGrew, especially being a remote company and getting new people on, so how to maintain the culture and how to build the evolution of it, with the new people coming in and blending in their
yeah, that's a very good question, actually, because culture does not spread through osmosis. It does to some extent if you're not a remote company, but it's really impaired.
Each new person is a new culture embedded to your culture. So.
Yes. But that's why, and I'll show it a little bit in a second. You need to really make people aware of different layers of culture as such. Yeah, this is self-reflection, and the knowledge is really important to start with. Because of course you need to talk, when we have culture book that we send to candidates already. We communicate a lot with candidates prior to joining NetGuru. So they knew what they could expect. They knew what kind of company NetGuru is. And this is already a key part, the candidate experience, or the potential candidate experience. So when they were coming, they received really extensive onboarding program. Started with, like the CEO and myself, telling them about what culture is all about, and then how can they can engage with culture on an everyday basis. But then they also had their own mentors for the first 3 months and leaders, and I think that helped a lot. Because we had like proper, checklist with the 4C, we call it 4C culture, 4C structure, culture, connection, and compliance, and then context. And within this structure, they learned about everything. I think it's so interwoven into the entire employee journey in how we lead. We would lead O3s that we would, for example, refer to culture, and the elements of culture, so that they lived it. They live it on an everyday basis. I think. This is what I mean. It needs to be interwoven all over. The employee journey.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Fine. I think we can move on to the next session.
All right.
That we have time for the practical takeaways as well.
Sure. So part 2, I think, again, I know my predecessors mentioned a lot of those challenges and very practical tips. So for me, you will see 5 main communication and collaboration challenges, as you can see, my own subjective selection, so that it's not too much. I started with the definition. We don't need to look at it, but in one word, in a nutshell, it's inclusive collaboration is all about everybody feeling equally included, at every stage, and it's not an easy endeavor in remote organizations. What you asked me about before, Alp, is the more global the organization, the more diverse it is in terms of different diversity dimensions. We have all our own set of cultural lenses that we see the world through. And one of the really important bits is to make sure people do understand it at the very start of the journey. Here I'm just showing some of the things. The one on the left, if you look at it, this is how complex this bit is, and the knowledge, even the awareness of them, that you are actually a product of your personality, of some other internal dimensions that you cannot change, basically, like ethnicity, age, gender. But then what comes on top of it is like even, some other external ones, like your work experience, your marital status, geographic location, and so forth. And then organizational dimensions. So the more people know about it, the more they realize how complex this picture is, how complex we are, the easier it is for them not to jump to conclusions, and to assume good intentions. Here I'm showing just the cross-cultural typical, of a nationalities model. And here, for example, social styles. So there are so many different dimensions of diversity, and it's not about really like understanding it really well and having trainings on all of these, but simply making people aware, yes, we are very very different, and we have no influence on that. This is, we've been shaped through the years.
Where is Poland on that triangle?
Where is it? Right here.
Poland.
Right here. Let me just show you. Okay, you can't see it. It's here. No?
Okay. All right. And Turkey is there, which is multi-active, warm, emotional, reactive.
Yes.
Courteous. Okay, good.
Yes. But it's really, even those simple cues help people see, the difference. And then again, what we do, for example, we have the Gallup test down here. This is the personality type, and the Gallup test shows you what 5 strengths you have. More than 5 you can also have, but it also shows you how you complement each other in a team. That you may act in a different way because you have different strengths and different social styles. But this basically means the more varied, the stronger you are, because you complement each other. So I think what I'm showing there, because it's really complex, the cross-culture challenges topic. But then what I'm trying to say is make people aware that this is simply we are diverse, and as you can see here, make sure that people are aware of it, and they are in charge of their own cultural filters. They know that they have these filters, and look at the wheel up there. I put it on purpose, so that you can avoid this vicious circle of misperception, misinterpretation, misevaluation, and mistrust. Yeah, even the very awareness of it helps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think what is important is to give them just general guides. Yeah, that help anticipate cross-cultural misperceptions and clashes, and simply know that everything is fine. It's not that this person there's something wrong with me or with that person. It's just cross-cultural differences. And of course, train people to strategize around them. I gave you some simple model here, how to strategize around it. Again, you can look at it a little bit later. But this is really a very simple starting point. Yeah, like to be able to distinguish perspectives, build self-awareness, recognize the complexity, avoid stereotyping, and so forth. These are just very simple steps that you can take on everyday basis to just refrain from jumping to conclusions and being judgmental. Yeah. And this helps a lot already, this self-awareness. All right, number 2, limited access to nonverbal language, resulting in miscommunication. And again, very, very, one of the major challenges, I think, for remote collaboration. If I think of NetGo and many other remote companies, 90% of communication happens on chats, live chats. In our case, it was Slack. And it's, as you know, devoid of nonverbal language. So depending on your social style and culture filters, you may sometimes use words or use wording that some other people find offensive, or maybe not exactly, they would, the way they would phrase it. So be considerate of other sensitivities when writing. Try to make sure your language is really neutral. But at the same time, assume good intentions when reading. Yeah, don't jump to conclusions. Don't feel offended easily. Just assume that there may be differences, or maybe somebody is in a rush or in a stress. So it's really important. Then interact live every day. Really, really important. I'm sure my predecessors also mentioned this before. Even if it means sometimes working next to each other. So sometimes agreeing with somebody, you know what, between 2 and 4 p.m. today, let's just have webcams on, so that I had this feeling like if we were in the same room together. Yeah. And sometimes we can chat, sometimes we can ask each other, give feedback or whatever. It gives us this impression of, working with somebody hand in hand. Yeah. And of course, we have those drinking morning coffee together to vent or to just socialize. So these things are really important that you remember about it every day. Yeah. That you socialize.
You have routines, like everyday routines on such socialization?
Yes, we have, for example, something called, and we took it from a company called Next Jump. You can also go online and see, they have really excellent practices. And Next Jump has something called talking partners, that you have people exactly that you pair with for a month, and you exactly have breakfast, or in the morning around 15 minutes, you just vent, you inspire each other, you just talk, you chat. Yeah. And it's not people from your team, usually from other teams. So also you get to know each other, and you get to know each other as people. And you also understand the organization better. You have a better system thinking, because you know how these vessels are connected in the organization. So that's one of the things.
So this is also in one of the resources that you are sharing?
Yes.
Okay. That's very good. Very, very good.
All right. And when it does not seem right, I mentioned that before, jump on a quick call rather than write on chat. Yeah, let not things escalate. Yeah, because in writing, it is misperceived very often. Slack is prone to distortion. Yeah, this Slack communication, devoid of verbal language, is prone to distortion. So try to make sure we actually do not let it escalate. All right, number 3. Human to human overtaken by digital, obviously. right? So make it as human as it gets. Yeah. Very important. Do not multitask the conversations, because you might be on a teleconference with someone and be having a Slack conversation with somebody else. Avoid that. Really give people undivided attention. It's really, really important. If you are actually talking to somebody, give them your undivided attention. This is key. No?
Yes.
Yeah. Then do not expect instant responsiveness. Yeah. People need to be responsive, but they cannot be responsive all the time in like within minutes. They wouldn't be able to focus on more complex tasks. Yeah. It's important to give status, so make sure people know when you are available, and also agree on response time for different channels and tools, but make it realistic too. Yeah, if people just keep reacting to different notifications and hundreds of threads on chats, they are not working at all. This is a waste of the energy switching between contexts. So it's really important also to agree on that. It needs to be clear what the rules are. Yeah?
So what kind of rule? I mean, so you have the chat and then you have another one popping up, like what do you do?
That depends, because we had, for example, an agreement that you have a status, or we had an agreement that you had a status on your Slack, and it was clear for people when you're slow to respond, for example. Yeah.
Okay.
Or so when something was really urgent, you would use the mention. Yeah, so it would be like the kind of lit up message.
So these are like also stuff embedded in the culture book, I see.
Yes. It's all about those collaboration and communication guidelines. They need to be really clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Then again, I'm writing, make it personal, remain gracious, kind at all times. Those courtesy phrases are really, really important. I'm writing about it down there, sorry. You see, it's about ensuring recognition, thanking each other, and simply, like even saying thank you and you're welcome. And these things are really, really important. Although you don't see the person, remember about it. Make it really personal.
Okay.
All right. The info silo trap, really important, and it can be well taken care of by the tools, but also, of course, guidelines are important and clear what we demand of each other. Yeah, so it's of course, I'm sure again you've discussed this, really well structured meeting notes that you share. Yeah, we use G Suite, so it was live communication. We could just be taking notes simultaneously. Yeah, and see what other people are writing and commenting. It's really, really a great tool. I cannot imagine living without it these days in G Suite. Then communicate really not one-on-one, but if something concerns a bigger group, make sure you have like on Slack it was possible to have dedicated channels where you would invite different people collaborating on a given project or topic. So that make sure it's not like one-on-one communication if it's a common topic. Yeah. So make sure everybody is on the same page. Yeah. Avoid like parallel threads. If somebody anyway would need to be put on the same page in just a second. Yeah, so make sure as much as possible to collaborate.
Distribute this on Slack or email, and like, is it manual taking notes?
Yes. You also have a manual how to take notes, how to take well-structured meeting notes, how to actually really make sure that with as little communication as possible, as many people as possible are up to date, so to speak, or everyone who needs to be updated is up to date. Yeah? The next one is really important. Avoid hoarding key information. Don't keep it for yourself. Yeah, if you know that it may be crucial. Yeah, sometimes it's a lot of tacit knowledge that we keep and we don't share. So make sure what kind of knowledge is valuable for others and would be worthwhile sharing. Yeah, don't some people have this knowledge is power syndrome, and it's really pernicious for any culture, especially remote.
So how do you decide if you are hoarding or not?
I think it's I think it's actually, and again, it will be there later on. It's regular rituals. Like, for example, if you have like one project, a milestone is finished, then you have the so-called after action reviews. It's a Scrum ritual, yeah, that everyone meets and we say, okay, what was the goal? What, in your point of view, went well? What didn't go so well? And what ideas you have for the future? This is already where you actually socialize this tacit knowledge, where you start basically harvesting knowledge from people. Yeah, and then they learn it. Yeah, once you do it regularly, they do it on their own.
Okay.
All right, and the last one is this communication and cognitive overload. So on the one hand, you need to really communicate and share and make sure people are on the same page. On the other hand, try not to, try to basically moderate it. Yeah, because if it's too much, people stop working. They only follow communication threads and notifications. Yeah. So make sure the importance of the given communication and action required is very clear. We, for example, had like traffic light signals. And when there was a certain announcement on Slack and on Confluence, and it was marked with red, it meant everyone needs to read it and react within 3 days. When it was orange, it meant please read it. You need to get familiar with it, but no reaction required. Yeah. When it was green, it was up to you. So you need to come up with this kind of.
That's for the email.
That was for our communication was mostly on Slack and Confluence, and only if it was red, it was critical. It landed also on the email.
Very, very good. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Then agree on response time, as I said before. That's restated here again, and then agree on the right to set oneself to away or snooze status. Yeah, as I said before, on Slack we had this slow to respond or snooze between this and that hour, and people knew they could not expect instant reaction of you because you were trying to focus on something more complex. Yeah. All right. Some other tips you will be able to read on later on because I know we are late. I could talk about it forever. But I think what is also very important, and I had no time to talk about it, especially in these days, is point 3. This is really investing in your leaders these days, in them understanding what servant leadership is all about, what, in investing in the emotional agility and resilience. And it will be more and more important in the VUCA reality in the future. And it is especially important these days because I think it's more, ambiguous than ever before. And really, it's the leaders who basically are critical enablers here. So it's really worth investing. As you know, I will have a lot of links for you that UARP will be sharing. So I'm not going through these. As you can see, many other remote smart companies share their culture books and different tips. So I've included them here. And as the last Q&A part, because I know Krista is waiting.
Thank you so much. So it's the Q&A part now, if anybody wants to shoot anything. And I would say, thanks a lot, Dorota. So many takeaways. And obviously, we have a lot to do and a lot to adapt for being remote. And okay, so if we were to, there is an emergency situation now. And if you were to provide, and that's actually some of the parts like emergency rollout, that's what we'll talk with Krista
about.
A transition. These are amazing and definitely things to implement, not only for remote, but probably for on-site also, many of them. And for the emergency situation, what would you say would be key takeaways for us, for people that are working remote right now?
Yes, I think this is what I started with.
So that they have a point to start with, yeah.
Yes, this is basically sitting as a leadership team, really working out what the current situation, priorities and goals are. Most likely even short term, because we cannot really later on talk to people about long-term goals. It's so ambiguous these days. Just making sure really you clarify your priorities and goals for the team, and really making sure that you as the entire team, not just leadership team, work out some of the norms and values and, this kind of as I said, social contract for the next quarter or two, so that you can really tackle this challenge together. Because I think it takes like a lot of commitment and a lot of well understood and commonly pursued goal to actually be able to face that challenge. Yes, I'd say this is it. This is this kind of common initiative of agreeing on some kind of new way of behaving, depending on each other, sharing vulnerability, and pursuing a goal that may be changing, but is clear at all times, even if it's changing and the priorities shift.
So before we close the session, so how do you do that? Like, what's the best way to do it quickly?
As I said, with the value review that we did, we had this kind of word cafe thing, representatives of different teams that, they met and they actually worked it out together. And the other people from the organization trusted, because they were usually selected by the teams as their representatives. So the rest of the organization trusted that this particular team actually speak for everyone. Yeah.
So if you are in, let's say if you're 1,000 people remote organization, can you do this in 1 week, for example?
I'm sure you can. You just really need to find the right people who are kind of sometimes silent influencers, but people who are simply trusted. And you need to know your people. You need to know who to pick.
Okay. Dorota, thank you so much. This has been super helpful. And we also see that there's so much to implement. And this is what we need to bring the best out of people. So thank you so much for sharing this expertise with us. So valuable. And
thank you. And I hope you can also use some of the links, because it's been really 40 minutes is just scratching the surface.
Yes.
I really think some of the links I sent will be helpful.
Yeah, you have been the light to now we know where to follow and where to look. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
And apologies to you and to attendants for the technical stuff. We are giving a 5-minute break before we start with Krista. So if you need to take a break or take a coffee, we will start at 4:25. So in 5 minutes with Krista. Thank you so much.
Dorota. Thank you, and good luck, everybody. Good luck to all of us.
Bye.
Bye.